Hi there. So I'm with Gemma Archer today, and Gemma is an expert, if I can say that, in pronunciation. So, yeah, Gemma, can I ask you if you can introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes, my name's Gemma Archer. I'm a pronunciation specialist. I live in Scotland, in the UK, and I'm also a joint coordinator of IATEFL pronunciation SIG as well.
Awesome, awesome. So, what led you down the path of getting into pronunciation, becoming a pronunciation specialist? How did that kind of all come about?
It came about because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing with regard to pronunciation. Like many teachers, I had received next to no training at all in pronunciation. And when you add to that fact that I have an accent, like most teachers in the world, I have an accent that's not represented in the majority of teaching materials. And because of that, I was just, walking blind trying to teach pronunciation in the very early days. And I really embarrassed myself a lot trying to teach pronunciation because I just didn't have a clue. And eventually I just thought, I can't do this. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my English, my accent. I'm just not going to teach pronunciation. And I didn't for about 8 years after qualifying. I did nothing, zero pronunciation. And eventually I got a job where I was teaching an elective in pronunciation. So gradually I started having to work things out, and I spent many evenings and weekends trying to, reading books and figuring things out. But it was when I did my diploma in TESOL, my dip TESOL, which I did with a Scottish company, and that was the first time ever in my teaching career that anyone had mentioned, teaching pronunciation, it's a bit different when you don't have this standard accent that's in all of the textbooks. And it was the first time it had been acknowledged or addressed. And from that point, I was just really um, incensed. I wanted to learn more. I didn't want to feel frightened or scared of teaching pronunciation. I wanted to get over my fear and to feel confident doing it and to be able to support students because, at that point I started to learn how integral pronunciation is to students, and everything really snowballed from there. I started doing more research. I did a research master's, and of course the biggest thing for me was joining IATEFL PronSig, the pronunciation SIG. That was a big moment that has given me so much in terms of knowledge and opportunities. So that's how I got here.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's a kind of a sense of because you're from Scotland, a kind of sense of trying to get out there that it's not, it's kind of how to put it, it shouldn't just be like received pronunciation all of the time. It shouldn't be like from the southern England, that's how people speak. Do you feel kind of quite passionately about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just, regional accents in the UK, it's English accents around the world. We know now that an accent does not make you unintelligible. It does not mean that people cannot understand you. You can be accented, heavily accented even, and still be intelligible. We know that now. We have evidence now to show that. And I think also we're responding to how English is being used today. English is not only used in the southeast of England; it's used all over the world, in all different industries. It's being used as a lingua franca where no native speakers are present. So why should these English users have to speak like, using the Queen's English or the King's English nowadays? Why should they have to conform to that when they don't need to, when they
Mm.
can spend their time working on the features that will really make them understood, rather than them being a traditional English gentleman or gentlewoman from, 1900s?
Yeah, actually, when I first wrote this TESOL course, I wrote all 20 units and I submitted it for accreditation. And the accreditation, after about 6 weeks, they got back to me and they said, right, we like this, this, and this. However, we are insisting that you have a unit on pronunciation because I didn't have. Like you say, there was most training courses don't have it, and that included my one. So I had to go back to the drawing board, and I had to, like yourself, completely kind of teach myself. And it's deeper than you would think, right? There's more to it, and one of the parts that I learned was about intelligibility, and how most English learners won't be speaking to won't be speaking to native speakers. They'll be using it as lingua franca to speak to
Mm,
other non-natives.
yeah.
So, why would you say it's important for English teachers to focus on pronunciation? How can it help learners?
In so many ways. It's like buy one, get four free when you teach pronunciation. You teach pronunciation and you can have a positive impact on all four skills. Obviously, we know that pronunciation instruction can support speaking, help our learners to be clearer, more intelligible communicators when using English. That's a given. And of course, what comes with that is greater confidence. So many of us who've been in the classroom know that students can be really shy about speaking out in the classroom, using their English to speak out. They're worried about their accent. They're worried that people will laugh at them or get into these embarrassing situations where they can't understand them. So anytime we work on pronunciation, we're trying to alleviate that fear that students might have. And anyone that's learned a language will have experienced that for sure. So I think we can all empathize with our students in that from that perspective. But beyond just speaking, pronunciation training can have a real knock-on effect on listening as well. Because whenever we're training students in a particular sound or feature, we're helping them not just to say it, but to hear it as well. So we're helping them to identify a sound after they've had that pronunciation training. So they get that kind of bottom-up experience. But they also get this lovely benefit of being able to start decoding the speech that they're hearing, particularly if we're working on receptive pronunciation, pronunciation for listening. And that could be features such as helping students work out connected speech when words are joined together, assimilation when we have sound change, reduced vowel sounds, all of which are very common in native speaker speech, not necessarily so around the world in global speakers. So for anyone that's helping students listen to native speakers, that could be in a film, it could be in an audio recording, these might be things we teach receptively. Pronunciation training can support that. Beyond just speaking and listening, it can also have a positive impact on reading and writing as well. When we do pronunciation training, we can help students to retrieve sound to spelling correspondences more quickly. So we can create this kind of phonological loop which helps them with reading, with writing, with spelling. So all of the skills can benefit from pronunciation training. And then we look at, the global English teaching industry, and how many of our students are also having, speaking assessments. So they're
Mm.
being assessed in speaking, and part of that includes pronunciation. Um, but I think the final one is that I haven't yet come across a student who didn't want help with pronunciation or who wasn't willing to have feedback on pronunciation. Students generally seem to want that support and that guidance. So there's so many ways that we can have a positive impact on our student by doing pronunciation instruction.
Yeah, I was watching a few videos with Laura Patsko about feedback, the importance of feedback in pronunciation. You like give it quickly, so they can actually use the feedback and just practice straight away.
Mhm. And implement it. Yeah.
Yeah, I taught in China for 20 years, and a lot of the English teachers there, particularly within public schools and state school settings, they have this idea that the perfect pronunciation, like we said earlier, is like American or English, and it's very difficult to change those conceptions because they're so deeply ingrained. So, what kind of advice would you give to teachers who are doing TESOL training or in practice teachers about kind of why they might want to change these kind of conceptions?
So the two accents that you mentioned, RP, or what we would call it more today in the modern world, Standard Southern British English. So that variety, but also General American, they are the two most common accents in English language teaching. We know from research that publishers are not all publishers, but a lot of publishers are not being receptive to global English voices in their publications. So we're really fighting against an industry trying to help students see that there are more than these two prestige accents, and they don't have to conform to these accents. But a lot of it is prestige. They associate these accents with positive things, whether that be status or wealth or a certain position. Certainly, my students say things to me like, I want to speak RP pronunciation. I want to have this pronunciation so I get a better job when I go home to China or elsewhere. And I think, who are they working for that that the person listening to them is going to A, recognize an RP accent, and B, think, okay, that means you're worthy of extra money. So I found that interesting. So this is an ingrained thing. And I think with regards to new teachers, first thing is be aware of this. I
Mm,
mean, when you start teaching, you're going to be faced with materials that are full of these two models. So any chance you can get, try to normalize this diversity that really does exist everywhere. And that could be as simple as, okay, so on the audio that we listened to, we heard this pronunciation. Is that how I say it? Or is that how you often hear it, elsewhere? Have you ever heard it being pronounced somewhere else? Let's
mm,
check this resource. Let's look at something like Youglish, the website Youglish, or other resources where we can listen to the word being pronounced in different ways, just to start opening students up to the awareness that there are different accents
mm.
and there are different varieties of English, and they are all acceptable varieties. Making that normal from the start, I think, is really important, because a lot of students have no idea that there are, more than two options for them. They think because all they've ever known is
Mm.
British, say British, because obviously there are many British accents. They think of British or American English, and that's it. Um, so it's not their fault. That's all they've ever, received in their lessons or outside, in media. But we have to begin by normalizing it and talking more about it. And when I say to teachers, why not bring in recordings? The first thing
Mm,
they say to me is, well, we have a syllabus. I can't really go stray too far from it. I have to teach what I'm told. But we have, asynchronous tasks that can be done for homework. So still, students are still getting opportunities to hear other Englishes and talk about them next day in class.
mm.
So there are ways and means of bringing in, international Englishes and different voices. We just have to be kind of, I don't know, resourceful about it.
Yeah, yeah. I always think it's a teacher is doing a disservice to students by only presenting audio tasks with standard kind of Southern English accents and American accents, because when they go out into the job market in the wide world and they're using English as a lingua franca, or speaking to someone from Ireland or wherever, South Africa, they're going to struggle because they haven't had the
They do.
practice.
They do. And here's what they tell me. They come to, I teach in a university in Glasgow, and the first thing they say to me is, I got my IELTS 6.5. I was confident. I thought, yeah, I can do this. I can speak in English. And then I walk off the plane and go through customs, or try to I get into a taxi and try to communicate with the driver. And immediately I have no idea what's being said to me. Now, sure, it's a bit different in Scotland compared to other places because of history and different languages and so on. But this happens regularly. Students who have no exposure to other varieties, they do struggle when suddenly they hear something that's pronounced differently. And it's a shock. And it can be a real knock to their confidence. And it can be, it can increase their anxiety to communicate with local people, or people that they know will have this accent, or this variety, or this pronunciation. So
Mm.
yeah, disservice is absolutely accurate. We're not supporting students to learn and get used to and become accustomed to English as it is truly used outside of the classroom in real life.
Mm, mm. What, where could teachers get further training if they wanted to do PD about pronunciation? What kind of resources are there out there for them to find?
So thankfully, things have changed since I became a teacher. I qualified in 2005, and back then, obviously, there was not very much. But since then, things have really changed. There's a lot of new publications out. But one of the easiest and fastest ways to get access to pronunciation CPD is by joining a teachers association. And of course, I'm biased because I'm joint coordinator of IATEFL Pronunciation SIG. But I say that because when I joined the SIG, I did not know half of what I know now. It has been transformative for me to join the SIG and have access to the resources. We have journals, we have online conferences, face-to-face conferences, webinars. We have so much to offer teachers because we understand that this is not something most of us have had. Most of
Mm,
us have not had this experience, and we need it. And there's lots of challenges involved with accessing pronunciation content for teachers. It's while resources are there, sometimes you need to talk about them, and you need to have the discussions and Q&A to get your head around things. So teachers associations are a great way to do it. And there are several teachers associations now out there.
mhm.
In the US, they have TESOL SPLIS, which is basically the North American version of IATEFL PronSig. In Argentina, in Brazil, they also have pronunciation SIGs of their own, and around the world. So it's a great way to start, is to reach out to your local association and get connected and start attending some of their events. But as I said, that we are having a kind of great success with publishing in pronunciation now. Lots of nice new books, and may I even plug my own?
You know, absolutely,
I've
please do.
recently I've recently co-authored a new book with my colleague Robin Walker. Robin Walker, of course, is very well known for being an expert in English as a lingua franca.
Mhm.
And this book we co-authored is called Teaching the Pronunciation of English for a Global World. And it's very practical. I keep saying it's the book I wish I had when I started teaching, because it's full of lots of very simple techniques that you can take into class and start using straight away. So yeah, I think we're in a different place now than we were when I started teaching, and we are all the better for it because there's so much more to have that we can access and learn from.
Wonderful. Well, on the course, we've got a whole section of like books that we recommend for trainees who want to kind of go a bit deeper with things. So we can put your and Robin's book
Yeah.
on this. Absolutely, yeah, yeah, that would be wonderful. Finally, Gemma, how can people reach out to you? How can they find you on socials and network with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Gemma Archer on LinkedIn. So that's probably the easiest way to get in contact with me. I also have a website called the Scottish Sound School, and that is for international students who come to Scotland, and it gives them some perceptual training and information about local varieties of English and Scots. So you can reach me on that website as well,
Wonderful. Thank
or
you
through
so.
PronSig, of course,
Sorry.
or through PronSig, of course.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to IATEFL next month, and yeah, it's definitely going to be something I come and check out.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks so much, you too.
Take care. Bye bye.
Cheers.